In this video, I'm going to be ranking some Roblox Studio plugins, and hopefully you'll find some in here that you've never heard of before that will greatly boost your productivity while creating games in Studio. All plugins mentioned in this list will be linked in the description below. So without further ado, let's get started. The first one we got up in the roster is the beautiful Require Autocomplete plugin. S tier, immediate S tier. Yes, it's $6. You have to pay $6 to get this plugin, but I use it all the time. It's such a time saver because I don't need to memorize where modules are located, or I have to type out the long lines of code to require import modules and services. This plugin does it all for me. So let's say I'm coding and I need the run service. No problem. I hit colon, run service, bam, it's in the game, or it's in my script. How about I need the player service? Bam! Player service in my script. Let's say I need to require my Epic module. No problem. My Epic module. Bam! Pulls it in and also pulls in any dependencies that it needs to require it. How about I need to get some module, which is a child of my script. I don't want to have to sit here and type out local some module require script dot some module. No. That's a waste of time. So you know what we do? Some module, bam, there we go. This plugin is an absolute lifesaver and time saver. So it's S tier. All right, next up in the roster, we got Reclass Classic. This plugin is free and it's great. I don't use it that often, but I use it a lot of times when working with UI and I make some kind of UI element and it's like, oh shoot, I forgot that maybe I want this frame to instead be a scrolling frame. And I already set all the properties I want on the frame and I added all the children. And now I gotta make a new scrolling frame and copy over everything. No, Reclass Classic makes this super easy. One click of a button. So that makes it S tier. This is an S tier plugin. So for example, let's say I had my frame and I need it to be a scrolling frame because whatever. I was like, oh shoot, I need a scrolling frame, but I already set up all my stuff in it. I got my stroke. I got my color on my frame and whatnot. I gotta fix this. No problem. All we need to do is we need to go open up the convert section for Reclass and it'll make some recommendations, but specifically, I want it to be a scrolling frame. Convert. Bam! Just like that, is converted my frame into a scrolling frame. Just like that. Easy peasy. No problem whatsoever. Next up in the roster, we got the AutoScript Template Injector. I use this plugin to store all the templates or the comment templates and other code templates that I have for my script, so like classes, custom services, that kind of stuff. And it pops up when I make a new module script or a new script, whatever. I click the template I want, and then bam, I start coding. Super useful plugin, very not obtrusive. It saves your templates, and it'll just pop up when you create new scripts, and I use it all the time, so boom, S tier. Excellent plugin. So let's say I'm scripting in my game, and I need to make a new custom service. So it's like, okay, let me make a new module script, throw it in there, boom, it automatically opens and it tells me to select a template. Well, guess what? I'm making a custom service, so I want my service template. Bam, fills the script, no problem. Here's my very epic custom service, and then I can just start coding away. It's very nice. Next up, we've got Archimedes. This is a great plugin if you do a lot of building and you need to make circular type stuff or whatnot. I don't do a lot of building, so I don't use this plugin very often. But if you do a lot of building in it, then it's excellent. So that's why it's going to go into the A tier for me, not S tier, because like I said, I don't use it that often at all. But in the times that maybe I do need to use it every once in a while, if I'm building something for some reason, then it's an excellent plugin and it's free. As an example, maybe you had like a road and you wanted to make a curve for your road, you know? So we could just open up Archimedes. It'll show up a little preview thing, and of course you can mess around with what direction it goes in to see how you want to design your road, and then you get to have fun with the angle. So what do I want to angle my road at, you know? Maybe I want it to be a big curve, so we're going to do 10 degrees, and then we can specify an amount as well. So maybe I want to do like 35, 1, I think it go up to, looks like it goes up to 35. I think that's a full loop. So actually, let's render all of it. We do that. And then bam, look at that. It made a circle. Look at that. There's your racetrack or whatever you're trying to build with circles. Boom. Super easy to use plugin. The interface is very nice. Lots of customization to mess around with directions that you want to make curves with your parts if your parts are oriented a little strange. So yeah, A tier plugin, because I don't use it that often. The next plugin we got is this DataStore Editor plugin by Slightnick. This goes in A tier. It's a great plugin, but it costs $10. So you got to dish out $10 if you want to have an easy to use data store editing plugin. But otherwise, it's a great plugin nonetheless. I use it all the time, but because it costs $10, that's why it's not an S tier. It's going in an A tier. So for example, let's say in your game, I've got my data store editor opened up here. We can click list stores to list out data stores in the game. I have it separated into production and studio, but like, oh, here we go, here's studio. I want to list all the keys out inside of studio. Hey, look, there's all the user IDs of players in our game, including the play tested players that have negative user IDs. And then you could go in there and edit around data. You can look at what data is. You can delete tables. You can edit data. You can save it. You can import or export data. This is a super useful plugin for editing anything in your data stores, which is why it's A tier, not S tier, because it's $10, but developers got to make money somehow. Next up in the roster. Oh, hey, wait a second. Is that Koji, the mascot of today's sponsor, Brilliant? You bet it is. Brilliant's little green buddy slides straight into S tier. Why? Because Brilliant helps you build the skills that can make your Roblox games better. Brilliant is an online learning platform for math, science, programming, data analysis, and artificial intelligence, where you learn by solving interactive problems and not sitting through hour-long lecture videos. Each lesson is bite-sized and visual, so concepts just click, which is perfect even if you've only got a few minutes to dedicate each day for learning. If you need stronger logic and reasoning skills, their programming and computer science courses train your brain so you can reason and problem solve while writing code. You can learn on desktop or even from your phone, so there's no excuse to keep leveling up and maintaining your learning streaks. And Brilliant does an excellent job of keeping it competitive, so you never miss a day of learning. So here's the deal. Head over to brilliant.org/crushyourfire or scan the QR code on screen to start your free trial. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Next up, we've got AutoScale Lite. This is an excellent free plugin. It's specifically for UI related items, and specifically there's a feature inside of it that I like to use when converting the position and size of UI elements from offset to scale or scale to offset. As an example, maybe you created a UI element and you positioned it on the screen or whatever. You messed around with the size and the position, and then you realize, oh, wait a second, the position is in pixels and the size is in pixels as well, but I want it to be all scale. Well, guess what? When you download the plugin, you'll have some of these things pop up here. I usually don't really use this one or this one. The one that I use most commonly is unit conversion, and I usually put it up here in the corner. And I can set the position and the size to scale or offset. So if I want these to be scale, boom, size goes to scale, and then position goes to scale. And as you can see, the UI element doesn't move at all, but now its position and size is scale, which is pretty cool. The other features in here is like if you had a, I don't know, let me throw in a text label in here, and then you hit scale text. What did that do? Actually, I don't really use these features. So it says select the UI object with text property and click this button to scale the text. Wait, what? Scale text. Now it's not doing anything. All right, I don't know what this one does. Oh, it puts a text size constraint inside of it. Hold on a second. Scale text. Auto scale text. So what did it do? It set text scale to true, but then it put a max text size of 14. Okay, that's interesting. And then you've got this other one, which is add constraint. Yeah, UI aspect ratio constraint. So it just automatically throws an aspect ratio constraint in here. But the cool thing is that it matches what the current visual aspect ratio of the object is. So if I try to resize this, oops, I didn't want to destroy the text label. If I wanted to resize this text label like that, and then I add it, as you can see, the UI aspect ratio is now 1.76. So that can be useful if you need it. The next plugin that we have in the roster is Instance Matcher. This one's actually S tier. All right, this one speeds up the process of needing to select certain objects in your game that match a list of criteria, and you can customize what that list of criteria is. So for example, let's say I screwed something up with my light posts in my game, my street lights, and I need to fix or manipulate a property in this light post or whatever. Well, I already put the light posts all over the map and I don't have them tagged, so I would have to like go through here and either search by name or try to figure out a way to select all these light posts to make a change that I want. Like for example, maybe with the mesh inside of it, I need to change its collision fidelity for some reason. Maybe I need to make that change. Now usually you could make these into packages and do that, or you can use the Instance Matcher plugin. So if you open it up, I already have it open here, I usually put it on my right side. It's gonna show all the properties of your object, and then you can start clicking them. So like, for example, with the streetlight, I want to select all of the instances that have this particular mesh ID. So I just click it, and there we go. It says it found 770 instances, and you can also change the match type. So you could do or instead of and, because the more and more of these properties I click, the more and more it's going to look for any objects that has mesh ID of this, and reflectance set to this, and render fidelity set to this, and texture content set to that content. And it'll tell me all the instances that it found, and then I can just hit select, and then boom, all of them are selected. I can go to my properties window and change whatever properties I want to change across all of those objects. This comes in super handy. All the time I use this for stuff that I've already placed on the map that I need to make changes to, or whatever the case may be. Instance Matcher is going to be your friend when you have a certain object selected, like fire hydrants. I can't select it because I think it's walked. Or this sidewalk, right? I need to select or find everything with this mesh ID. Boom, 615 instances found. Or maybe you need to, for example, change a set of buildings with this particular color, like here we got this thing right here, and I need to find everything that has this particular color. Oh look, select all the instances that have the color, and they all pop up in there. And then maybe I can change the color when to whatever I need. Very useful plugin. The next plugin that we've got is Brushtool. This one is excellent to decent. I'm probably going to put it in decent because it hasn't been updated in a while, and I don't use it that often. If I need to build something on the map and I need to brush random objects around, I can do it, but it's out of date, and the way it scales objects as well doesn't take advantage of the new scale methods with models, so it's going to go in the decent category. For example, I've got the brush tool open here. Click to start. It'll show me all of the instances that I currently have in the history, so I do have some stuff in here. And you can select and deselect instances inside of here that you want to brush. And then you can also select certain instances, and there should be a pop-up in here somewhere. Yeah, do you want to add this thing to the brush? So you could select your set of objects that you want, and then you can toggle a whole bunch of stuff. So when you activate the brush, no brushes are enabled. Click one or more of the brushes below. So if I select something like this and then activate the brush, you can see here's the brush area, and when I start painting objects on the map, they'll start popping up. You can define the radius of the brush, the spacing between objects in the brush, if you want to ignore certain things, what the placement rule is. Now, something that's unfortunate is that there isn't a way to like offset objects. So when you paint objects, for example, on terrain, they have a tendency to float. So for example, like you paint a tree on terrain, sometimes it'll have like a gap underneath it and it'll be floating. And it would be cool if the plugin had an option for you to add like an offset on the y-axis or the local y-axis, so it would kind of offset the object in the terrain a little bit so it didn't look kind of weird. Unfortunately, that plugin doesn't have that option. Along with it, when you start painting and you change the scale factor, it doesn't use the scale property of the model. Instead, it does its own scaling, again, because this plugin hasn't been updated in a while. So you got to watch out for that as well. There's some other extra tools in here, like you can create stamps and then also erasing areas that you've painted. And then you have some other miscellaneous settings. So it's very customizable. I just wish there were a little bit more customization features, specifically when painting objects on terrain, which is what I use this plugin for. Most frequently, I use it for painting stuff on terrain. But even then, I don't use this plugin that often. So it's going in the decent category. It is free, though. The next one we've got in the roster is Building Tools by F3X. I've got no opinion on this because I don't use it. I used it like a little bit, and then I was like, I don't need to use this. I'll just use the regular building tools in Studio. I mean, if you're a builder, you probably love building tools by F3X. It's very highly rated, but I just don't have an opinion on it because I don't really ever use it at all. So no opinion on that. The next plugin we have in here is Copy Attributes, or I believe it's called Attribute Cloner version 1. This one's also free. And whenever I need to copy attributes from one object to another object, I use this plugin. So it's decent, it's good. I rarely use it when I need to copy attributes, but when I do, it's there for me. It's very useful. As an example of where this plugin could be useful is that I have different vehicles in the game, and they have different attributes that modify certain behavior on different aspects of the wheel, like the wheels, the engine, the suspension, modify different stuff on the car. And maybe I want to copy some of these settings to another vehicle. Well, I don't want to manually enter or manually change the values on the other vehicle. I just want to copy these attributes and paste it on the other vehicle. So in the plugins tab, when you have this plugin installed, you're going to have a bunch of options here. Copy attributes, paste attributes, clear all attributes, and then you can also do some keybinds with it as well, which is pretty nice. So you could select your object like this thing. Oh, I want to copy the attributes. There we go, we cloned 8 attributes. And then maybe I want this behavior of the suspension to be the exact same on, I don't know, my sports car for some reason. So then I select that, and I'll hit paste. As you can see, it updates all the values, and there we go. And if you didn't like it, don't worry, we can do Control Z, undo it, fixed. We got a bunch of errors from Brushtool. Again, there's some issues with Brushtool. It hasn't been updated, so they need to fix it. But hey, look, there you go. Copy attributes from one place to another. It's a decent plugin, and it's free. Next up, we've got Moon Animator 2. No opinion, because I don't use this one either. I don't do a lot of animation work. And I mean, I have Moon Animator 2. I got it a long time ago when it was free, and I messed around with it a little bit. And then I never used it since then. I know a lot of animators love using Moon Animator 2, but right now it's now paid, and it's $30 US to get Moon Animator 2. So that kind of makes people be like, this is a middle of the road plugin. Sure, it's great at animating, but it's $30. But for me, I got no opinion on it because I don't use it. I don't know the usefulness of Moon Animator 2. Another quality of life plugin we have is Ozzypig's Emit plugin. This is also a decent plugin. I don't use it very often. It's going to go in the same category as copy attributes because they're both just ease or quality of life plugins that you might use every once in a while. And it's just good to have them running in the background. So whenever you need to use them, they're there for you. So when you have the plugin enabled and installed, you could select your particle emitter, and then in the top left of the screen, you'll have this little thing pop up. Get out of my way. You have this little thing pop up that you can specify amount and emit that amount, and it'll show you what your particle emitter looks like. So if I hit 5, emit, there we go. We just emitted 5 particles. And this is especially useful for anybody who works on VFX stuff in Studio and they need to visualize all the different components of their particle emitters, because you can have multiple different particles emitters selected and emit all the particles from them, and then they can have their own different unique emit counts. So there will be an attribute set on them. I think this plugin should set an attribute if I change it. Like if I set this to 10, there you go. You can see an attribute gets set called emit count. So this particle emitter will emit 10 particles, while the rest of them, even though I have 10 selected up here, if I hit emit, this one's going to emit 10 particles, whereas the other ones are going to emit 5 each because they don't have the attribute. Or actually, no. They should all emit 10. Hold on, let me select all of these. Set this to 5. So this one has emit count of 10. These ones have emit counts of 5. So if I select all of these and then I click emit, there we go. They all emit at their different rates depending on what their attribute is. You can see how the background changes. So if I have 2 of them selected that have different emit counts, you can see the transparency changes to let you know, hey, you have different particle emitters selected that are going to emit at different counts or whatever. So that's pretty useful. Very useful plugin for VFX artists, but otherwise I don't really use it that often. Next up, we have Packet Profiler. This one's an excellent plugin. It's free, and it's basically like the Micro Profiler, but it's specifically for observing networking in your game and visualizing the size of packets and see if you're spamming remote events or whatever. It's great for optimizing your network usage in your game, and that's what I use it for a lot when I need to fix issues with networking if those issues ever arise. This plugin's great to benchmark, see if changes you implement help improve or make your networking situation worse. and I'll show you it here in a second. You might have seen it in previous videos of mine. When you have the plugin enabled, you'll have two options. One is to open the profiler graph. So when you play test, this will start running just like the micro profiler. And at any moment, if the client receives information from the server, so like from a Fire client or Firewall clients, that packet will show up in here, and you can pause it, select it, and read more information about that packet through this other menu, which is the packet chart. And then if you do a local server test, so if you do server and clients and you have a separate window for the server and separate window for the clients, there will be two different packet profilers. On the server side, it will show you all the information coming from clients to the server. And then on the client side, it'll show all the information coming from the server to the clients. So you can look at information going both ways. So as you can see, I had my game running and we got a few packets in here. So let's look at this packet. We had a data update, and it looks like I requested from the server something to get some data information from one of my game services, and then it'll show you all the sizes of different things broken down. It'll give you the total size in bytes, so that way you can see everything that's going on. And then you can figure out if you want to implement your custom data serialization or whatnot, if you have some kind of system in your game that needs it. But this is very useful just for observing any information coming to my client. So let me see if I could do an action in the game that would warrant the server to give me some information. Let me think. What would I need to do for the server to give me some information? Probably I would need to make some money, actually. So if I give myself currency, maybe that'll, yeah, there we go. We got a packet. Let's look at that packet. And then let me reopen back up this thing here. We got a data update. What specifically updated? Oh, cache updated in my data, and our new value is 100 cache. So I have a system that syncs data that's in my data store or my profiler, or profile, whatever you want to call it, and it sends those data changes to me through a proxy, because the server listens on the server side for when data changes my profile, and then it just tells me on the client side so I can observe my profile on the client side, basically real time, to have a synced copy of my data from the server on the client side, so I don't have to constantly request to the server like, hey, what's my data there? And our packet profiler picked it up, so that's pretty cool. Next up on the roster, we have, well, this thing, it got cut off. Let me see if I can try to remember what this is. I think this is the Constraint Editor or something like that. This is a decent plugin. I think it's out of date as well, but there's specifically one aspect that I use in this Constraint Editor plugin, which is for creating Motor 6D joints between certain objects. As an example, I've got trash cans in my game, and I needed to make a Motor 6D joint between the lid and the body of the dumpster to animate the lid opening and closing. And the easiest way to do that would be to select your object, select the other object that you want to create a Motor 6D joint, and you'll have all these options pop up. You can tell it's old because it has glue in here and other stuff. But specifically, we want to create a Motor 6D between two parts. So when you click that, it'll create a new Motor 6D between the two parts, and it won't shift anything around. It'll calculate the correct offsets for the Motor 6D, so everything remains the same. So if I select my lid, I select my body, and I hit Create New Motor 6D, boom, it creates a new Motor 6D, and then I can actually manipulate this Motor 6D in the next plugin we're about to look at. And actually, let's talk about that plugin right now. Sorry, Part to Terrain, we're gonna skip over you because we're gonna look at RigEdit Lite. RigEdit Lite. This is an excellent plugin because it's free and it allows you to modify or change Motor 6D joints between rigs in your game. And you can use this for non-humanoid rigs. You can use it for any rig that has Motor 6D joints inside of it. So for example, back in our game, if I select my dumpster and then I open Edit Rig, you're gonna see that the entire dumpster becomes transparent. And then we're going to have all these little things pop up here that show all of the Motor 6D joints. So you can see right there is my original hinges, and this is the new joint that I created right there, the body joint. Now if I wanted to move this Motor 6D joint, like over here, to change the pivot point for when I animate this dumpster, this plugin makes it really easy. I can use these to move the joint around. I can change the step. If I want to rotate it, I can rotate it by hitting R, and then I get a rotation tool popping up. It's a very useful plugin for editing rigs in your game. The next set of plugins we could actually go into are going to relate with terrain. So let me actually migrate this one over here. So the first one we're going to take a look at is part to terrain. And as the name suggests, it converts a part to terrain. So I mean, what more do you want? Excellent plugin, because it does exactly what it says it does. So as an example, let's say I had this part here, and I want this part to be terrain. Not a problem. All I need to do is open up part to terrain. It's going to tell me, hey, which material do you want me to convert this to? We have some other extra settings in here, but I'm not going to worry about these right now. What do I want to convert it to? Do I want to convert it to grass? Maybe the ground? Maybe some ice? Let's do some ice. So if I click that, and then I got my part selected. So basically, I think, yeah, I can't do that. But if I just click the part, there we go. Exit the tool. And now we have a giant block of ice terrain. Just like that. We converted our part to terrain. And then it also has history as well. So you can Control Z and undo it. Maybe I want this to be lava. So I'll click it. Boom. Lava. There you go. Very simple plugin, but very useful if you like working with terrain. The next plugin we've got in the roster is Terrain Save and Load. And it's a decent plugin. And it does, as the name implies, it saves terrain and it loads terrain. And its use is kind of limited beyond that because you can't save certain areas of your terrain and load those certain areas. What it does is it saves your entire terrain and then it loads that entire terrain as well. But the cool thing about it is that when it saves the terrain, it saves it as an instance, and then you can use that instance to load terrain. So you can basically copy terrain from one place and paste it into another game you have, which is awesome. So in this place, if I want to save the terrain, I can hit save. It'll pop up a new instance inside of the workspace. And then if I do workspace terrain clear, like I had down there, the terrain's gone, but because I have this terrain object selected, if I load the terrain, boom, look at that, our terrain is back. And then I can also copy this instance and paste it into another place and load this terrain as well. So let's do that. And I copy it, and back inside of the new place, I can paste this instance inside of here. I can open up the terrain save load plugin. Here it is. And I want to load this terrain. So click load. Bam, there is our terrain, just like that. Now again, like I said, this plugin is a little bit limited because it saves the entire terrain of your game. You can't select like a specific area or region that you want to save. And that's not the plugin's fault. I believe that's just a limitation of the terrain API. I was trying to figure out how to save certain areas of terrain and then paste certain areas of terrain into another game, but I was running into all sorts of issues. The API is really funky with it. For some reason, when you saved or created the instance that saved the terrain and then you copied and pasted it into a different game and tried to load it, it didn't work. It's very buggy. Roblox needs to update their terrain. This thing's been here for a long time. It needs a rehaul. So that's why this plugin, it's decent. It's decent. The next set of plugins we have are specifically created by Stravant, which is GapFill and ResizeAlign. Both of these are excellent plugins. I mean, bordering on the verge of S tier. If you do a lot of building, it's probably an S tier plugin for you. So if you had a gap between two parts, you can fill the gap. If you wanted to resize parts for them to meet up with each other, you can do that as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at these plugins in action. So let's say I'm building something in my game, and I have two parts like this, and they have a gap between them that I need to fill. And I can't move these parts, or I don't want to try to manually move these parts and try to line them up or whatever. I need these parts to be like this because it complements something else I've built, whatever. I need to fill this gap. Well, don't worry. GapFill has got you covered. So you open up the plugin. The UI is pretty old looking. It's not the best UI, but it doesn't matter because this plugin's functional. So when you hover over the edges of parts, you're going to see these arrows that pop up. It defines the direction. But I want to fill from this point to this point. Click it. Boom. It creates a part for me. Perfectly matches the same size of these parts, and the gap is now filled. How cool is that? And you can do it from different angles as well. So I can do it from like for example, maybe we're building maybe this is the forward facing or like visible area, and we need to fill this gap this way. No problem. We just do it like this. Boom, boom, and it'll fill the gap just like that. Very, very useful. You can also change the thickness, thinnest, plate, one stud, a best guess. Honestly, I wish there was an option where you could manually define how thick you want it to be. So there could be more customization features, but it's just how this plugin is. And then you can also change the direction as well. So if you want it to be opposite, boom, look at that. It fills it in the opposite direction. So that's pretty cool. And then with the other plugin, ResizeAlign, we got a lot more options in here. So you got like outer touch, inner touch. If we do outer touch and I select this face and this face, boom, they merge together just like that. If I do inner touch, it's going to merge together when the first point touches right there. Very cool. Rounded join, if I do that, it's It's very similar kind of to GapFill, but it merges them together and then just kind of rounds out that corner. So that looks pretty cool. Butt joint, we do that. It does that kind of behavior. Extend up to, let's see what this does. Okay, it does that. So it extends this face to this face until it hits it. And then extend into, migrates the entire face into this other face. And then there's some different selection behavior as well. So like, what's the threshold that you want for selecting faces? You can see exact target, 15% threshold, 25% threshold. So yeah, very, very simple plugins, but they're great if you do a lot of building. Next plugin we've got is Sufi's Block Comments. This is a decent plugin. It's free, and it does exactly what the name suggests. When you comment out code, you can specifically have it where instead of it putting like multiple dashes on multiple lines, it wraps it in a block so you can collapse it. So for example, here in this code, maybe I wanted to comment this chunk of code out. Usually I'd hit Control/, and then it does that kind of stuff. But what if I wanted to be able to like collapse this code here and not comment it like that? Well, when you install the plugin and then you go to shortcuts, where can I find shortcuts? This is the new studio. I actually don't remember where that would be. Oh, here we go. Customize shortcuts. Let me find block, toggle block, commenting block. I guess it is toggle block comment. I guess it's showing a question mark here because I did shift. But basically what you do is I do Control/, and this time it makes a block comment instead that I can collapse. How cool is that? The simplest plugin in the world, but it's pretty useful when you need to comment out sections in your code. So you can define whatever keybind you want for it, and it will create block comments. Next one we've got here is Team Create with hats, which basically just allows you to put hats and faces on your little Team Create bubbles that float around when you're, in Team Create. As an example, my buddy's in here. Here's his little floating orb that shows where he is inside of the Team Create session. And if you wanted to put a little hat on him, you could you could put a little hat on him. But you got to pay $5 because the plugin's $5. So because this plugin's $5 and it doesn't really have any other utility other than putting hats on your Team Create session friends, it's a middle of the road to like poor. I mean, it's cool. $5 for hats though. I mean, I don't know. Middle of the road. Next one we've got in here is 3DText 2 or version 2 or whatever. This is a free plugin, and it's for creating actual physical 3D text in your games if you want to design or build or whatever. So that makes it, decent to excellent. I don't use it that often, so I would say it's a, I'll say it's an excellent plugin. If you're a builder, you'll love this plugin. So as an example here on my Palette Autoloader 3000, this was made using 3DText. Along with that, I got some other 3DText up here. This is all done with the 3DText plugin. So what you do is you go up to the plugin, 3DText, it'll pop up this window here, and you activate your cursor, and then boom, look, here's your text. And you can rotate it, you can tilt it, do that kind of fun stuff. And then when you click, your text will appear here, and then you have a whole bunch of options for modifying your text. So you can change the font to different font styles. I don't know if there's any other extra fonts you can do in here. I think it's only these predefined sets of fonts because these are physical mesh objects. And if you wanted more fonts, you would have to like upload the meshes for each letter, number, and that kind of stuff. So it looks like there's only these set of fonts, which should be good enough for most games. So like I want it to be Baloo, whatever this font is, and then you can type in here. It even shows up a cursor in the world, which is pretty cool. Hello YouTube, this is a video. There you go. Hello YouTube, this is a video. And then you can change some other stuff like what's going to be the spacing between the letters. You can modify that. You can change, I believe this is going to be the height as well. So if I like put these on different lines, you can see that adjusts the height between the two. That's pretty cool. You can change the thickness of the meshes. If you want them to be like Star Wars text, you could do that. Or you could also change the scale if you need it to be bigger or smaller. And then you can change the alignment if you want it to be left aligned, right aligned, center, whatnot. Actually, I think I don't know if that's correct. Align left on the X. Maybe this is global axes, I'm not sure, because technically my left is this way. But you have some other options here. Oh, you can define which way is right and which way is up, so you can define which axes that is. So you got customization for that. And then of course you can also change the color. So you want it to be yellow, You can also change the materials if you want it to be like neon or brick. And you can even change the part mode. So now this is a special mesh versus a mesh part. I don't know why you would use a special mesh, but yeah, change the material. And then once you're done editing your text, that looks very ugly, but whatever. You can hit finalize and then boom, you're done. There is your 3D text object with all the characters inside of it. Pretty neat. Last one we've got inside of the roster is going to be the ToolGrip Editor. And this plugin's $5. It used to be free, but now it's $5. I mean, developers got to make money somehow, right? It's specifically for making editing tool grips a lot easier. I usually don't work with tools that often, but when I do and I need to adjust the grip, this plugin does make it really easy. At the same time, though, it's $5. You know, I wish Roblox actually had even a lower minimum price developers could set for their plugins, because I think the minimum is $5. If they could introduce like a $1.99 option, I think it would make a lot more plugins a better value. Like specifically this plugin, I think would be a good $1.99 plugin. At the moment, it's going to be decent, and I'll show you what the plugin does here in a second. So as an example, let's say we had some pizza, and we want to put this pizza in our rig. So actually, let me just drag it inside of the rig. There we go, our rig is holding the pizza. Maybe I wanted to edit the grip of this pizza because technically it's actually floating there a little bit. Don't worry, the plugin's got you to save the day. We're going to open up the ToolGrip Editor. It's going to open up this little viewport in the bottom left. Actually, let me resize it so it's a little bit more obvious. We can select our rig, or actually we need to select the tool. Okay, there we go. And then there is our tool, and then when we pan the camera around, you can see that it also adjusts how we're looking at it within this tool grip. And then if we want to edit it, we hit Edit Tool Grip. It's going to pop up this like fake arm. So you might not even need to put it in a rig if you don't want to. So actually, let me exit out of the plugin and let me just put the pizza in the world like that. So you don't actually need a rig. And then we can go back and open the tool grip, edit the tool grip. It's going to pop up this fake arm. And then we can use the different tools to like move the arm. So it'll show us like, hey, what does this look like when we're moving the tool? If we want to adjust it this way, if we want to rotate it, we can rotate it as well around different pivot points, kind of move it around, and then we can change the grip of our pizza slice. And then when you're done, you can just exit out of the plugin, and when we go move this tool back inside of the rig, there we go, there's the new grip, just like that. So useful plugin when you're working with tools. Otherwise, if you're not really working with tools that often, $5, I mean, I don't know. It's a decent plugin. And that, my friends, concludes the roster. There it is. If I missed any plugins that are super popular or plugins that you love, share it down in the comments. I love to find more useful plugins that save me time. Tell me where you think it belongs on this list. And then if you actually want to use this list yourself, I'll have a link in the description so you can rank these however you want to rank them. And yeah, there we go. Tier list. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.